Good evening, everyone. I would like to start the East Whiteland Township Planning Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. Our first item of business would be to first stand and face the flag if you have one, or Zach, I don't know if we have one on the screen, or I always forget if we have one in front of us.
We do. Yeah, he'll bring one up on the screen so we can
Okay,
start
do
with
the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag
the flag.
of the United States of America and to the
the
republic for
republic
which it
which it
stands,
Stands
one
a
nation,
nation
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible, and for liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Has everyone read the minutes from January 27th, 2021 meeting? And if so, were there any comments or changes? No?
Yep.
Somebody like to make a motion to approve? Anyone?
John Lawler makes the motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Our first and only item tonight is a petition for zoning map amendment changes. And it is for the property that, let's see, property owner petition to rezone the property on South Malin Road. It is, the owner of the property is located at 9 and 10 South Malin Road. They've submitted a petition requesting that the township consider a zoning map amendment to rezone the property from its current designation as RRD residential revitalization to industrial. The property owner has proposed to voluntarily restrict the property via a covenant from certain uses otherwise permitted in the industrial district. I think, is it Lou who's here for the applicant?
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Good evening. Lou Colagreco here on behalf of the applicant. We discussed this at last month's meeting. I think it was generally favorably received by the Planning Commission. Deb, you accurately stated what the proposal is. There's area, I guess it's about 7 or 8 acres right now, owned by Malin Road Associates, which is 2 individuals by the name of Brian Forcine and Jim Lees. I don't know, I don't see their names on the phone call here, but they may be on the call. I apologize if I can't see them here. But they have property that many years ago was zoned industrial for many, many years. And then back probably about 8 or 9 years ago, it was rezoned to residential revitalization district to facilitate really part of a larger proposal for housing on what is commonly known as the Bishop Tube site. This acreage was joined with that acreage, and a plan for 200 or 300 homes was advanced. That was then, this is now. These properties have dropped out of that assemblage. They no longer wish to be developed as residential properties, and they wish to be returned to the institute or industrial designation that they held for many years. We approached the township about a map amendment to zone it to industrial, and the township said, okay. The township advised that there were certain uses in the industrial zone that may not be appropriate on this property. The property owners were asked to voluntarily restrict the property against some of those uses. You've all been given a copy of that restriction, and we have agreed to do that. So that really the only uses left on that could be developed on this property, if this ordinance is passed and if these covenants are recorded, would be what I would call light industrial uses that used to be found in what was once known as the light industrial district of East Whiteland Township. So that's where we are. Last month's Planning Commission meeting, we were asked to tighten up some of the restrictive language to provide that you couldn't have the uncontained storage of outside materials. So if there was going to be, say, a landscaper there, materials would have to be stored in those bins that you see. There would have to be some containment to spread, to not let these materials spread all over the lot, to make it look cleaner and neater. We were also asked to tighten up performance standards to make sure that any manufacturing industrial use could not produce dust, smoke, fumes, gas, noxious odors. And we've added that restriction to the covenants. So it's not that complicated. I can answer any questions that we didn't address last time. I think that this is ready for recommendation to the Board of Supervisors and to go to public hearing on the amendment.
John Lawmer with a question, Lou.
Yep.
What's been added is those restrictions,
Yes.
which gives some, I read them as you read them as somewhat open to interpretation, but flexible.
Yeah, I mean, many of the restrictions in the district already apply generally to all uses in East Whiteland Township. So we didn't invent these terms. When we use terms like noxious odor, that's already in your ordinance. The prohibition against dust, smoke, fumes is already language that we took from your ordinance that applies in other districts. So we've done the best we can, given the verbiage that we've had. I think really to restrict it anymore probably wouldn't be worth even advancing the map amendment.
So it's an ancillary comment that I have, which is, but worth, I think, putting on the table is sound. Sound has been a noise, let's use that word, has been a problem elsewhere in the township. Is that worth pursuing?
Yeah, well, noise, you have a general noise ordinance that applies to all districts. So we didn't have to deal with that. There's a decibel. I don't have it at the tip of my tongue here, but you measure sound nuisance, as most townships do, by the proximity to abutting districts. For instance, your ordinance regulates permissible decibel levels at various times of the day. If you abut a residential district, which this site does or would, then you would take a measurement at the property line and you would have to meet those decibel levels. We're not asking to change any of that. So,
All right. Yeah, I accept that. Thank you.
okay. Mm-hmm.
This is Tim Kelly. I appreciate the rewrite that you sent in for the ordinance, or for the excuse me, for the restrictive covenants, and I mean, I think it's a much better use of the land than the residential, which was proposed previously. That's the only comments I have.
Thank you. I think you're on mute, Deb.
Sorry. I think your rewrite was pretty clean, but I'd like to hear a little bit from Joe McGrory, our solicitor, on that.
I think the rewrite clarified an issue that I was having trouble with as well as Zach. And I think the way it's rewritten now, it makes it very clear.
Yeah, it wasn't the picture of clarity. The first, I'll admit, I'll confess to that, the first draft I sent in, but I think we've cleaned that up sufficiently.
Anybody else have any comments from the board?
I'll just say that I think it's good.
Thanks,
I've
Jeff.
read it thoroughly, and I think we're good to go.
Thank you.
I'll also say I think it's good and kind of returns it back to the status quo of what it was, and I think I'm happy with that.
Thank you.
I think it'll be a good buffer between the residents up the hill and whatever project happens to the other parcel there. But I think it's the best use.
The progression's a good one, because if you look at Buckeye, you would consider that heavy industrial. If you look at this site with the restrictions, I would classify it as light industrial. And then, you butt it with the residential. So I think it is a good progression of land uses. So what we need is a recommendation to the supervisors for, if you're so inclined, to enact the map amendment that we have proposed.
Zach, do we want to move to public comment, or should I say board members, should we move to public comment unless somebody else has anything to add?
I'm okay with public comment.
Yeah, I believe we received at least one email comment, which Brittany can read out loud. I think we can address those comments, or Luke can address those comments. We just asked that anybody else, if you do have comments, please email them over or raise your hand. We are not monitoring the chat feature, but with that, I'll open it up.
Yeah, I'll read what we have just in the email. We just have the one. It comes from Robert Reinhardt at 67 Malin Road. I have some questions concerning the zoning change on Malin Road. Who are the owners of this property at 9 and 10 South Malin? What uses of the property is the owner volunteering to restrict if the zoning is changed? Will the property restrictions volunteered by the owner be made permanent for this property if the change to industrial is made? And why does the owner want to make this zoning change? What will the change enable the owner to do that is not already possible with the RRD designation? Thank you for considering.
I can run through them quickly. The owners are Brian Forcine and Jim Lees, known as, they trade as Malin Road Associates. That's the legal owner of the property. The present property designation is RRD, Residential Redevelopment District. The rezoning would not allow for, or the current zoning would not allow for these industrial uses, would allow for only really residential use and home occupation on the property. You can't have a home occupation unless you have a residential use. So that's one of the reasons we're seeking that change. The basic reason we're seeking that change. What uses would be restricted from development on the property? I'll quickly run through them. I will call the first one heavy manufacturing or industrial, which produces dust, smoke, fumes, gas, or noxious odor. You can't do printing or paper, plastic and metal. Cinema, radio, television stations not permitted. Transit stations, junkyards are not permitted. The uncontained outside stockpiling of green yard waste is not permitted. Dry cleaning and dyeing facilities not permitted. Animal hospital, veterinary not permitted. Wireless facility, antennas not permitted. Adult uses not permitted. Truck terminal not permitted. All those uses would otherwise be permitted in the industrial district, but the owner has restricted this property from development of those uses. And yes, the restrictions would survive ownership of the property. They are restrictions placed on the property that run with the land no matter who owns it.
That's all we received via email. So if you want to move on to if anybody within the meeting has questions or public comment, I'm sorry.
Zach, do we have a way to show the changes or the zoning restrictions to the public who are watching, or no? Can we share screen or something?
Yeah, I can bring them up on the screen. Let's see here. We could also put them up on the website. I imagine we'll have similar questions moving into the board
Okay,
with you. So I can,
that's fine.
if you'd like, I can bring them up, but we can put them on the website as well, if they're not already.
Thank you.
You want me to bring them up on the screen? I'm sorry.
Well, if somebody wants to ask a question tonight, I don't know if they have access to what we're looking at.
Yeah, good point. So what I'll actually do is I'm going to bring up the use table, the highlighted use table, and what's shown here, everything that's highlighted is excluded. Everything that's highlighted is restricted by this covenant, and what is not highlighted is essentially what's left, and that is what would be permitted moving forward.
Perfect, thank you.
If I could get it to share. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
So I'm not seeing any, we can give it another minute since I just put that up, but I'm not seeing any hands raised or
Okay.
questions. Folks can feel free, since it's a small meeting, I guess just this one time, you can unmute yourself if you have a question, but otherwise I think this may be ready for a motion.
I thought I'd give them an opportunity to take a screenshot
Yeah, fair enough.
and they can look at it. We can, I guess, continue our discussion if there is any, but
Put a motion on the floor at least.
yeah. Is anyone comfortable with making a motion? I think we all agree on this.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
Tim Kelly,
So I'll make a motion for agenda item number 1 for the approval of property owner petition to rezone property on South Mainland Road. Does that cover it, or should I read the whole thing?
That covers it.
I think it's, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Peter.
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Great, thanks a lot. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. You sure you
Thank
want to
you.
stay a little bit longer, Lou? I mean,
No, I
Yeah,
think,
there.
I think next month you'll have your full of me. You'll have your fill of me, I should
oh,
say. So
okay.
this month I'll back out the back door. But have a good night.
You too.
All right.
See you, Lou.
See you later. Take care.
Is there anything anybody wants to discuss?
Ordinance changes?
We will have a couple for you next month. We've kind of been working on a couple of batches. We'll have at least one more use related. We'll should have the residential accessory use stuff that's been sort of batted around in months prior. I think we've got your comments reflected. It's just kind of gotten backburnered here the last couple of months. We also have some changes to the industrial district to kind of reflect sort of some of the topics that are hot these days and people that are, you know, for example, contractor operations. It's not obvious that they're even permitted in the industrial district, which is, you know, the most logical place for them. So things like that. So we'll have a couple for you next month. Other than that, just continue to kind of work at the subcommittee level and work through some of the items that we see out there that's needing addressed.
Zach, I have a question or two actually. First one is, what's working its way down the pipeline toward completion in the area of residential? Like, when do buildings get commissioned is the word, and people start to move in? The big one, the big lump in the python, so to speak. When does it come out?
Well, we actually don't have a whole lot of traditional residential at the moment. I know I would say in probably from 2014 to 18, we had a number of residential approvals, single family homes, townhouses, projects like that. All of those are nearing completion and are being occupied. A lot of them are sort of transitioning into the closeout phase. We don't really have a whole lot of new traditional residential. There are some projects that involve multifamily components that we're looking at, but most of which you're aware of, probably all of which you're aware of. So I don't think we have any new lumps in the python. I think those lumps are kind of working their way through the snake at this point. To that point, we do meet quarterly with the school district to talk about development and other things that are going on in the township and in the district with the other member municipalities. So nothing new to report, I don't think. But to Lou's point, there are a couple other projects that have been submitted and reviewed over the last couple of months that'll be making their way onto your agenda over the next I would say 2 to 3 months. And so I think, we probably will have a couple of longer meetings coming up. I know you guys have had a couple already just this year. So
I was thinking about traffic and a calibration metric that the next time a big project starts to rent, let's say just for example, the one that's on Route 30 now that's probably, I don't know, half completed, to actually do some traffic counts as tenants begin to arrive and see what the patterns are in the new lifestyles that we've all been, I'll say, speculating about because times have changed. And when we have the COVID lockdown still partly operating, I'm putting it out there just for people to think about. Like maybe that's a good idea.
it's an interesting idea. And I think right now it's difficult to do traffic counts just with the disruptions going on. But I will say that we've got, as part of the 209 study and some of the other initiatives that have been done over the last couple of years, we've probably got a really good baseline of I'll call normal. So when some of these other projects come online, like the GMHs and like some of these other projects that have been approved just in the last year or two, we should have a pretty good baseline to compare against. So luckily we did have that information before all this craziness of the last year or so.
Hey, Zach, not to interrupt you, but I think Steve Schmidt is trying to raise his hand. He might have a question or a comment.
Oh, sure.
But John, to your point, and Zach to yours, I think when we did the 30 corridor study, we also had all that traffic data in order.
Yeah, especially on 30, we have a lot of data.
Yeah.
And our cops do speed counts, traffic counts occasionally too. So we should be pretty well equipped with data. So I think that's a good point, John. It kind of looking at some of these more recent projects.
I was thinking about actual driveways, egress points at the major new developments. And lately when I go down Route 30, I don't know, 2 or 3 times a week, heading east and west, and it feels sort of, maybe it's not a surprise, but it feels very relaxed comparatively. I don't feel that tension. And my concern would be that it's going to, when things let up with COVID, that it could be crazy. So I think getting some more baseline data was my thought.
Okay, yeah, good point.
Let Steve in or?
Yeah, Steve is in. I think he might even be unmuted. So Steve Schmidt, if you have a question, feel free to.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, thanks, everybody. Real simple question regarding the agenda item for South Mainland Road. Subsequently, if the project is changed back to industrial and then another use comes along for the property, such as park or open space, is there a prohibition on how frequently the zoning can be changed or a time limit requirement that has to transpire before the board could consider an additional or another change?
No, there's no time limit requirement that you space out rezoning requests or rezoning ordinances. There's a whole bunch of bodies of law that relate to rezoning properties, but there's no time separation involved in any of them.
Okay, thank you.
I'll add to that. One of the ordinance amendments you'll see next month actually addresses the industrial district. And one of the uses that we're looking to clarify, because we have a fair amount of it in our industrial district, is these recreational uses. They usually have to go to the zoning hearing board and they're approved pretty much every time, as long as we have an understanding of their parking and some different impacts like that. So that is something you'll see next month. We'll actually be permitting them. We're making it clear where they are permitted. So that should actually help address the question that you had, Steve.
So are you indicating that an industrially zoned parcel can also be used for recreational purposes?
That is one of the draft ordinances we have that'll be considered next month.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
No, I'm good. What about everybody else? Oh, you said from the public.
Yeah, you had your chance. I'm not seeing any hands raised or chat features. It sounds like there's nothing coming through the email box, so I think we're okay.
Mhm.
Motion to adjourn.
I am ready to adjourn. Is somebody going to make a motion?
I'll make a
Hello?
motion to adjourn.
You
I'll
guys are
make a
waiting.
motion to adjourn.
Everybody made a motion to adjourn.
Yeah.
Second,
Adjourn.
We have a
Sure.
second.
John Lummer seconds.
All those in favor? Aye.
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 All right.
I had to prove before I got on that I was not a robot. I'm afraid I can't do that. I am a robot.
night.
Well, you all have.